everybody. I want to give a welcome back to the one and only James Kennedy. James, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me back, man. It's great to see you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, it's not morning your time, but it's morning here. But um, so you have got a lot going on. It's been out over there for a little bit, but just released in the United States and Canada. Noise Damage: My Life as a Rock and Roll Underdog, the new book. How are things going so far? What's the reception?
It's been great over here, man, to be honest. Like, it came out in October 2020, so it's been out a few months. And the response was great. Like, all my sort of fan base and everybody sort of like bought it straight away when it came out. It did very well. But then it had a kind of resurgence in January, like straight after Christmas. It flew up the charts again on Amazon. I went to number one in 3 different categories. So it like overtook Rob Halford and Chili Peppers and Slash and Lemmy. And I went straight to number one. The only one I didn't go to number one on was the rock biographies. I couldn't knock Roger Daltrey off the top spot. So I was there at number two. So it did very good, yeah. And then like 2 weeks later, it came out in the USA, which I think was last week, USA and Canada. So I don't know if I'm going to have the same results in the States, kind of a bigger land mass. But in the UK, it's done way better than I ever imagined. It's a great
That's great.
thing. And yeah, considering the story of the book is basically about a band who like weren't successful, So to see like the biography of my ex-band Kyshera higher up than like books that we used to read on our tour bus was yeah, pretty insane.
Yeah, and to be fair, being number two to Roger Daltrey is not a terrible consequence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I could take that.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting book, and I really enjoyed it. And you're right, it's very different in that it's not. And then here was the enormous reward. It's a very realistic tale of the 99% of what happens to people. Although to be fair, I'd say you did have a fair amount of success given to, I mean, you got the touring, you got the albums made under a lot of duress, I might add. You went through a lot to create your art over the years. One of the current topics today, speaking of the book, is the streaming services and the lack of revenue paid to artists. And a lot of your career took place before Spotify and all that per se, but you do cover a lot about the lack of money artists make in the industry. Do you think that will get better as time goes by, or do you think there's a solution around the corner, or you think it's just gonna be a slow evolution of push and pull?
I think it's a really strange one with music because music was probably one of the first formats to suffer from the internet, file sharing and all that sort of thing, because they're small files. So movies are suffering now, but I think we were the first sort of industry to really experience the full downside to that. Like Netflix and everything have come along. And movie streaming is kind of like a very normal thing. It's not affecting the movie industry as much as the music industry was affected by it, because I think having us lot go through the gates first, over the trenches first, to kind of figure out how best to embrace streaming and the internet within your industry. We were kind of like the guinea pigs in the music industry.
Sure.
So it's strange with music because, yeah, I mean, the file size is not as big as a movie. Songs are more, they can be more disposable, I suppose. You can have a gazillion songs on your phone, and music has always been a format that tends to need to be attached to something. It used to be, whether it was a physical record, vinyl or a CD or sheet music or, a live performance. So streaming kind of bucks all those trends because it's now just in the air on a tap like water, so you can have it free of charge anytime you want. And I think that's here to stay. I think there's going to be periodic resurgences in physical formats like we've seen with vinyl. But I think streaming is here to stay. How to monetize that, I think, is the big question. But
Right.
but I think it's nuanced as well, though, because like I'd actually do very well from streaming. Like I haven't been able to perform since like last March because of the lockdown. And my streaming revenue every month has been paying for all my outgoings. I could live on my
Oh,
streaming revenue. So, and I'm sort of like, a small, pretty much unknown artist. But I think the difference is is that I own 100% of all my work. So when bands like Radiohead are complaining about we don't make any money from streaming, well, that's probably because they only get about 80. They probably only get about 20% of what's generated. Then they've got to split that 5 ways and give 10% of that to their managers or whatever. So right. I think there's a lot of middlemen. Whereas for me, I get 100% of the publishing, 100% of the mechanical, 100% of the label side, everything, because I'm a 100% independent artist. So I don't shift the sort of streaming figures that somebody like Ed Sheeran does, not by a million yards, but I make money out of it, a living wage out of it, pretty much, with with downloads and digital sales and things as well. So for me, I kind of feel both ways about it. I don't think it's the big devil that everyone makes out it is, but I do think the value of music definitely needs to be increased. I think the per unit payment that artists get from the streaming services is definitely too low.
Yeah, that makes sense though. A lot of the hemming and hawing about how little they make, and it, don't get me wrong, yes, they Spotify pays a pittance per stream, yeah. But you're right. Maybe some of these people getting huge streams, the picture is deceiving because they're only receiving a small percentage of that, because they're still landlocked in that old model of the manager gets this, the PR firm gets this, the record label, yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. The recent headline, Gary Newman had one of his songs over 1 million streams. He received 37 pounds.
I saw that. I was like, can I swear?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Swearing makes it pretty much half my vocabulary. So
yeah, it's really what the actual fuck.
Not possible.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's probably a deal or something he signed away in 1985 that's affecting this now.
Yeah, I think it's much more a reflection upon the back end of the deals that these guys have made. Like bedroom artists are making 100% of everything, like myself, Like my last album was recorded in this chair this is the studio behind me, you know what I mean? Like in my spare room in my house. Didn't cost me a penny to make. So anything that I do make on it is net profit for me. Right. So if you can get enough activity going, you can make money. Not great, but I mean, you probably earn more if you did a few pub gigs in your local town. But it's now money for music. The stuff I've already done, I don't have to do anything for that. That's generating money while I'm sleeping, and it's just one revenue stream. I think the way forward for artists now, certainly in music, is diversification. We can't just rely on touring. We can't just rely on sales, and we can't just rely on merch. It's all of it. You know what I mean? It's so volatile now. It's so difficult, and everyone in the world is doing something. It's difficult to get heard above the noise. And touring, I would argue, again, is something that's only really profitable for big artists that have got the budget to make it doable and affordable, and to do enough dates to make a profit. Like when we were doing it, we were touring, all around Europe and stuff. And we got our costs down to an absolute minimum. We slept in the van, on the side of the motorway and things like that. We did all our own driving. We didn't take any crew, nothing with us. We did everything by ourselves, and we still made a loss. Because it's bloody expensive, fuel and just fuel and van hire and food is expensive. So I think people have a little bit of romantic nostalgia about the way the industry used to be. It was always a game that was won by the 1%. You could make loads of money touring if you were Led Zeppelin, but you couldn't if you were some small band, from Cardiff that didn't have a deal, and neither could you make a record if you were a small band from Cardiff without a deal, because going to a studio back in the old days with a big analog desk and a guy that knew how to use it and racks of equipment cost loads of money. So, there were different problems back then. If you couldn't get a deal back in the good old days, it was over. So We've got just a different set of problems now,
Going back to the book, you have some sobering thoughts, and the book is uplifting in a way, and at the same time you lay down some harsh truths, like you're not all gonna be Led Zeppelin or Muse or Radiohead, and it's just and it's not just, put your nose to the grindstone and work hard and you can make it, kiddo. It's like sometimes you do everything right and tough shit, you didn't make it. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you have some very uplifting things about, just the self-discovery of anybody along the way of pursuing a dream. So I think it's a great read. It's a nice balance. It's got its fair share of doom and gloom, but it still comes out on the bright side of like, hey, look, it's life, and it's just all how you view what you pursued.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm glad that came across because I think much of it is funny. Like my editor, who edited the book, got back to me and was saying, "Hey, you talk about what a great time you had in this chapter, but I'm confused because everything you've described sounds horrific." And I was like, "Me." I kind of look back at it, kind of thinking it was funny, the stuff we did in Toronto and stuff. I look back at that fondly, staying in that awful hostel and stuff. To me, that was like, that was part of the adventure. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
the
interesting.
boots and bare ass.
Bare ass night terrors.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the adventure, you know what I mean? And I did want to be like brutally honest about it because, I prefer that. I think there's more for people to gain from honesty. I think, there's enough mythology out there about the rock and roll, roller coaster. We know those tales and they're great fun and I love those tales too. But I mean, it's just not the reality of most bands. And I think it would be nice once in a while to read something that resonates on a personal level, to feel like, hey, yeah, my band had those problems too, and that happened to us, rather than always feeling like everybody else is in on some magic success story when the truth is most people aren't. So I thought it was just, I felt it was a side of the story that needed to be told,
No,
and
I think
at the time it wasn't that bad, to be honest. We were enjoying it. It was rock and roll.
right. No, I think it's an invaluable addition to the rock bio lexicon, as it were, because it does paint a different side. Yeah. The Yeah, a lot of great stories. And one thing about it is you're very open and honest. When you were writing this book and editing it and getting ready to release it, you laid out yourself in very candid terms about what you were going through and different struggles you had. Was there ever a second guessing process where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to reveal all this, or I don't know if I want to say that? I mean, it's got to be tough to just put yourself out there.
I don't find it so. No, the times when I had a very panicked re-edit, the personal re-edit that I did, about 2 weeks before it was published, where I said to the editor, "Is it too late yet?" And he said, "No, if you want to add something, you can add something." And I completely rewrote one of the later chapters, and that was all to do with how the band broke up.
Okay.
So my kind of second guessing and stuff was done with regards to other people. There was a lot of stuff in there that I did leave out regarding ex band members and how things broke up, because I didn't want it to be like airing dirty laundry or anything like that. I had to be honest about what happened, because at the same time it's also it is the biog of Kyshera. So for people that are interested in that, I did have to lay out exactly what happened in the band and the chronology and things. But I sort of wanted to touch those points and also give an example of how, otherwise good people and good friends in bands can have these breakups and these situations, which most people, have their version of. So I did want to be as honest as I could, but obviously, with respect to some of the other people in the book who didn't have any decision as to whether to be in there or not, I had to sort of straddle that kind of line of telling my side of the story, but also being respectful to the fact that they're not there to tell theirs. So that was the only sort of area where I did go back and do re-edits and things like that. But with regards to myself, no, I'm perfectly fine putting myself out there. I mean, I do it in my songs as well. I mean, I try to be as authentic and as honest as I can in my lyrics. So, and I personally, I feel like it's good for people to do that. I personally wish more people did that. Like all the guys I've looked up to all my life and felt like, oh my God, these guys are like, they're heroes, they're magic, they've got no flaws. And then as you get older, you realize, yeah, they're just people. And I think it's healthy, if more people who were up on a pedestal would be honest about their flaws and their fears and their failures and that sort of thing, because that in some way is encouraging to other people who are trying, who may be feeling that like, hey, everyone else seems to have this figured out and I don't. And I think my experience of life is that's just not the case. So I'm happy to put myself out there, as a
Sure.
kind of as a whipping post. I don't mind that.
Yeah, you're the guinea pig. Yeah, but no, it's an excellent book, and it just comes across as brutally honest but entertaining. Um, Going back to touching on your music, last year released "Make Anger Great Again," and with some other of your solo stuff, post Kyshera and things like that. Um, you started off in a very complex and oppressive way with Made in China and all that. Um, One thing I've noticed over the life of many bands is, and I like both, but most people who start off writing complex or surreal things like that, almost inevitably over time they tend to hone in and parse it down. Like, here's the essence of what I want to do. Um, I almost guarantee that nobody, like, you know, Radiohead would not make Kid A or the Bends today. Um, Rush, rest in peace, Neil Peart, but would not make 2112 or Hemispheres. Yes, would not make Tales from Topographic Oceans. These long, expansive, uber complex things just they tend to evolve. Um, do you think that's inevitable? Like, what was it for you? Did you say I want to, or is it just the songs you write now? You just don't feel the need, like I can say everything I want to in 4 minutes as opposed to 15 time signature changes.
Yeah. There is a little bit of that. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, man. My interest just changed so rapidly, and I honestly don't know what my next record or my next project is going to be at this point. But when it comes, it'll come very quick. Like, this record was written and recorded in 3 months, just like my last album and just like the last Kyshera album. So that seems to be my format now. Okay, it brews away. My interest gets picked by something like a new sound or a new discovery, and then that kind of brews away in the back of my mind for a bit. And then once it's ready, I just have a blast. And then within a few weeks, I write the whole thing, record the whole thing, and then I'm done. And I kind of got that out of my system. And I never really know what it's going to be until it comes. So at the moment, I'm just happy. I'm not really thinking about music as such. The album's been out a few months. And I kind of got that out of my system, like going back to, like, straight hard rock. Like, after my last solo album, Home, was a kind of kind of an accompaniment to
Right.
Kyshera, really. I did the heavy stuff with the band, and that was kind of on the side, like more sort of singer-songwritery, you know, songwriting kind of outlet was in my solo stuff. But now I'm officially a solo artist who doesn't have a rock band. I was yearning to get back to some rock and roll. So I did this new album, Make Anger Great Again, which is probably more similar to the last Kyshera album, Circle. Um, and now that's kind of, I felt like I needed to do that. I was yearning to play some hard rock and dust my electric guitar off again and play with my fuzz pedals, and also get back to writing some heavy political music.
Right.
Honestly, don't know now what the next record will be. I mean, it's funny you should mention how you started the question, because I totally see that in a lot of the bands that I love. Like Radiohead. They started out very mainstream, in a Britpop band or whatever, and then became the kind of the epitome of experimental, you
Right.
know, exploration. And that it either goes that way, or they start out really crazy and they get gradually more and more diluted. I find that happens with bands.
Right.
Kind of what happened with me. I started out doing like Made in China and 9IP and things like that. Like, I got all this stuff out of my system, and then fell more in love with songwriting. And you see that in the last Kyshera album and my solo albums. But for me, I don't know if that's a path that's going to continue. It could easily go back the other way, and I might get bored of writing songs and riffs 4/4 and want to go back to doing crazy experimental stuff again, or I might end up doing electro pop. I literally don't know. But that's the beauty of doing things the way that I do, is that I'm answerable to nobody. So as long as my fan base, God bless them, are willing to come with me on wherever I go next, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, I guess, and that's the beauty, is that as long as the fan base supports it. If you were signed to a big label, you wouldn't have that freedom nearly as much, to completely change directions. Now, you tend to write, like you mentioned, like once you get it jailed in your head, you tend to bang it out fairly quickly. Um, but like, I wonder your song process, like a song like The Power. lots of fuzz tone guitars. You've got that little funky little interlude, like a little wah pedal, just a simple little melody that's sort of a breakdown. Do you ever second guess yourself? Do you ever go, hey, this song is kind of a heavy song. I need more of a powerful lead break or a solo? Or do you just go, that's it. I love it. Like,
Uh, it's hard to say, really. Some songs, the way I tend to write is I capture. I'm a big voice notes fan on my phone, so I feel like my best ideas. I've pretty much done things every which way now. I think like when I first did my first record and I didn't know what I was doing, I worked really hard, trying every angle and every variation to try and get the magic thing. Now what I do is I just wait until it comes to me. So if I look back over my best, what I feel are my best ideas, my strongest songs, they've normally just come to me while I haven't been looking for them, whilst I've been driving or, doing something else. It just comes into my mind. And they tend to be the best ideas. So I catalog all these things when they come. I think I mentioned it in the book onto my phone.
yeah.
And then they all kind of ferment away in the back of my mind. So when it comes to like actually sitting down and just filling in the blanks, I've got a fully formed pretty much idea of what the song is and what I want it to be. There's always those couple of like spots that are a pain in the ass that you can't, get a chorus for or something like that. And they tend to be the points then that I sit down and actually work on them. Try this, try that, try the other. But as a general rule, no, it's these days anyway, the song is pretty much fully formed when I go to record it.
And that's probably better. Yeah. Once you get more comfortable with your own voice as a musician, just be like, you just know what you're comfortable with and what direction you're going in. That's probably good. Yeah. What do you think? Was it weird, speaking of Make Anger Great Again, with your vast and tortured touring existence? Was it strange to release an album and not spend 200 days on the road?
Yeah, really killer, man. Because like the whole vibe for that record was getting back to rock and roll and getting out there with a band. And I advertised for a band, and I had lots of people get in touch and say, yeah, we're up for it, And then the pandemic hit, so it was so frustrating to kind of get that record done and be excited about it. And just like I can't perform. It's like, and it doesn't look as if that's going to happen this year either. Like all my sort of friends who are work in the live side, like booking agents and tour managers and things like that. The word that they're giving me is that no one's looking at anything in the UK anyway until autumn time, at least, if that happens. So I think for me, I can't see it happening on a practical level this year, which is such a pain in the ass because the record would be like over a year old by that point. So yeah, it's really frustrating, man. It's been a surreal thing in general to have a book and an album come out, within 3 weeks of each other is a pretty hefty ordeal anyway. But to do it without being able to get out there in the public and do a signing thing or some gigs or anything, it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, it almost feels like you didn't finish the process.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah,
Totally.
so strange. Well, what do you think you'll go from here? I mean, I know you've just gotten all this out into the world. So, I mean, any ideas yet of what the future may hold or plans for this year, or is it a wait and see?
It's a little bit of a wait and see. I do have an idea for a second book. That won't be a music related book. It won't be about me or anything, or my journey or anything. It'll be something totally different, which is, I think if I do continue writing, it will be very similar to my output as a musician. Like one book will be like Noise Damage. The next book might be a thesis on, stoicism or something, and then the next book might be a kind of, graphic novel or something. It just, I don't know. So, but I do have a strong idea that I'm excited about for a second book, which I can't say right now. But musically, yeah, I mean, man, I'm doing like acoustic live streams and stuff, but that's not the same as doing a loud and sweaty gig with a rock band. So on that front, it's a wait and see, unfortunately. But I mean, if this drags on, then I'll probably start doing some more music. But for me, I'm holding on to Make Anger Great Again, really, until I can perform that live and get that out of my system.
Well, and you've gotten some great videos along for it. So I think that was energy well spent. Like that's promoting it as best you can, and they're well done videos. So I thought that was a good direction to go. Like, hey, I can't do live dates. Let's put the energy here.
Yeah, it was so difficult as well because for the power, the idea was to have a big warehouse with a band and do the whole, like cliche rock and roll video. And obviously we couldn't do it because we did all the videos during the lockdown. So there's an abandoned house like across the way there. I live in the countryside, so this is the only house in the postcode apart from this other house which is like abandoned. And so I spoke to the guy that owns it and said, look, can I shoot a video in there? He said, yeah, because all the theaters are closed, the village halls, everything is closed. So luckily, Scott Carey, who does the videos with me, said, he was up for doing it during the lockdown. So I had to play all the instruments, as you've seen in the video. And we just had to be really creative with what we can do to make a music video with no personnel and no locations and, not even any venues that we could hire or anything. So it was interesting. I didn't really want to play all the videos, all the instruments in the video, but
Right.
we didn't have another option. So
Right. It's yeah, I remember some of those. I was like, okay, that's him on the drum kit. That's
yeah,
but
it's like an ego project. It's like, oh, look, there's me, then there's more me.
yeah, exactly. But hey, well, hey, the to close out the interview, let's kick you off at a rendition of Wonderwall. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, I never want to hear that song ever again.
I know.
Noel Gallagher, I got to shake his hand and say, thanks for paying my rent for like 20 years, man.
Right, exactly. But I want to make sure before we go that everybody knows where they can pick up Noise Damage, where they can pick up Make Anger Great Again, and just stay in touch with your current goings on.
Well, the best place, my social media pages are always good. I'd like to be active on there when I can. So on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Snapchat, I think it's James Kennedy UK. So there's two James Kennedys, as my friends in America will know. There's the guy off Vanderpump Rules with the blonde hair, the DJ and the reality TV star. That's not me. So if you go on my page and I've got blonde hair and I'm pulling a kind of duck lip pose with some model by my side, that's not me. I'm the other guy with the leather jacket and the kind of pulling the moody face. So if you go on Spotify, I'm the guy, scowling and looking like pissed off. So that's a constant problem that I have with sharing a name with that guy, is that people think I'm some kind of club DJ or something. I'm not. So James Kennedy UK, that's me. The album Make Anger Great Again is available in all the regular stores, so it's like Apple Music, Amazon, wherever else you get your music, Spotify. It's on YouTube as well. I put the whole thing on YouTube. And the book has just been released in North America, Noise Damage, My Life as a Rock and Roll Underdog. It's available in all good bookstores. It's got full distribution out there, so you can get the paperback in Amazon, Foils. I don't know what the bookstores are in the States, so wherever you get books, they should be able to get the copy in.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, James, it is always a pleasure. It's been too long since our last chat, so hopefully we'll have to keep in touch more often and keep everyone abreast of what's going on. But great talking to you again.
Definitely. Oh, thank you so much, man. I always love talking to you, man. It's like it's always have a really fun time, and hopefully we can do it again. Before too long, and maybe one day we can, do it in person. Once the apocalypse is all finished.
Absolutely. And a shout out, you and I emailed each other a few months ago, like, hey, let's get in touch and do another convo. And then we both got busy and lost track of that. But hats off to Penny, who sort of reignited the conversation. She messaged me and said, hey, let's do James again. So thanks to her for sort of reigniting that conversation. All right. Well, thanks again, James. We'll be talking soon.
Yeah, great to see you, man. Thanks for squeezing us in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks again. Bye.
Be safe. Bye-bye, man.